The gala was a sea of shimmering silk and blinding diamonds, but for Eleanor Vance, it felt more like a cage. She stood at the edge of the ballroom, wearing a simple, traditional high-collared dress that she had sewn herself. To her, the fabric felt like home. To the crowd, it looked like a relic of a forgotten era. Eleanor looked toward the door leading back to the ballroom, where she could hear Sienna's high-pitched laugh echoing through the hall. She leaned back against the cold wall, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. "Patience," Eleanor typed back. Asterisk, the shadow is still watching. Asterisk. The next morning, the atmosphere in the Vance mansion was colder than the marble floors. Eleanor was in the kitchen, carefully hand-washing a delicate lace tablecloth, when Sienna stormed in, her face pale and her eyes glued to her tablet. "I don't understand it," Sienna shrieked, slamming the tablet onto the counter. The velvet shadow posted a critique. "She tore the collection apart. She even found a loose thread on my own gown. How is that possible? Nobody was close enough to see that." Julian followed her, looking exhausted. "The investors are panicking, Sienna. Global Vanguard just pushed our meeting back. They said they need to reevaluate the brand's longevity." Sienna turned her venom toward Eleanor. "And you? Why are you still here touching things? Your peasant energy is rubbing off on this house. It's bad luck." She grabbed the damp tablecloth from Eleanor's hands and threw it into a corner. "Pack your things, Eleanor. I've already found a place for you. It's a small cottage near the old textile mills, back where you belong. You're distracting me from saving my empire." Eleanor didn't flinch. Ba calmly picked up the tablecloth and smoothed out the wrinkles. "An empire built on sand cannot be saved by removing a stone, Sienna," Ba said quietly. "Don't you dare give me your village wisdom." Sienna spat. "You're an old woman who sews buttons for a living. You know nothing about the high-stakes world I live in. Julian, tell her. Tell her she's leaving today." Julian looked at his mother, then at his wife's furious face. He chose the path of least resistance. "Maybe it's for the best, Mom. You'd be more comfortable in the countryside. The city, it's too fast for you now." Eleanor looked at her son, seeing the shadow of the man his father once was, now completely erased by greed. "I will leave," Eleanor replied, her voice steady and devoid of bitterness. "But remember, Julian, when you throw something away because you think it's outdated, make sure you aren't throwing away the only thing keeping the roof over your head." Sienna laughed, a harsh mocking sound. "I'll take my chances. Get out by noon." Eleanor walked upstairs to her room, but didn't pack much, just her vintage sewing kit and her phone. As Ba walked out the front door, Ba sent a single message to her 5 million followers. Asterisk, the house is empty. The shadow has moved to higher ground. The real show begins tonight. Asterisk. Sienna's flagship store was a chaotic hive of desperation. The Global Vanguard acquisition meeting was only hours away, and the brand was hemorrhaging credibility. Every major fashion outlet had picked up the Velvet Shadow critique, and the hashtag Lana Lux Lies was trending. "We need a miracle," Sienna hissed, pacing back and forth in her glass-walled office. She turned to her PR head. "Did the shadow respond to our offer?" The PR head looked down at his clipboard, sweating. "She declined the money, Sienna. All $50,000. She sent back a one-sentence reply. Integrity cannot be bought in the bargain bin." Sienna swept a row of expensive perfumes off her desk, the glass shattering against the floor. "Then find out who she is. Every woman has a price. Every critic wants to be a star. Offer her a seat on the board, a capsule collection, anything." While Sienna was spiraling into a rage, Eleanor was sitting in a modest, sun-drenched room in a quiet part of the city. She wasn't at the cottage Sienna had picked out. She was at her private studio, a place her family didn't even know existed. Her phone buzzed incessantly with invitations from the very investors Sienna was dying to impress. Julian called her, his voice trembling. "Mom, where are you?" "Sienna is. She's not doing well. She thinks if you could just call some of your old contacts, maybe you could find a way to reach the Velvet Shadow. You used to know people in the industry, didn't you?" Eleanor looked at the mannequin in front of her, draped in exquisite, hand-spun silk that captured the light like liquid silver. "I do know her, Julian," Eleanor said calmly. You do? Thank God. Tell her to stop. Tell her we'll do anything. Sienna is willing to apologize publicly if that's what it takes to save the deal. It's too late for apologies, Julian, Eleanor replied, her voice as sharp as a tailor's shears. The shadow doesn't want your money or your excuses. She wants to see if the future core can survive the light of day. And tonight the sun is going down. She hung up before he could respond. She picked up her needle, threaded it with a strand of midnight blue silk, and began the final stitches on a piece that would change the industry forever. While Sienna was busy trying to buy a reputation, Eleanor was busy finishing hers. The grand ballroom of the Hallbrook Grand Hotel was filled with the elite of the fashion world. Sienna stood on the stage, her chest puffed out with artificial confidence as she prepared to unveil the centerpiece of her rebirth collection. This was the moment that would either finalize the Global Vanguard deal or end her career. Tonight, Sienna announced into the microphone, we prove that fashion belongs to the bold, the modern, and the fearless. We leave the dusty traditions of the past behind. But just as the music reached its crescendo, the giant LED screens behind her flickered. Instead of the high-energy promotional video Sienna had prepared, a grainy, high-definition live feed appeared. It showed the interior of a workshop, not Sienna's sterile modern office, but a warm room filled with antique wooden looms and spools of genuine silk. The room went silent. On the screen, a pair of elegant aged hands that the audience didn't yet recognize, were skillfully repairing the structural disasters of a Lana Luxe gown. The hands stripped away the cheap neon tool to reveal mismatched seams and glued-on embellishments that were already falling apart. A voice, distorted but calm, echoed through the ballroom speakers. It was the voice of the Velvet Shadow. Sienna Vance asks you to look at the future, the voice said. But look closely at what she calls innovation. It is nothing but a hollow shell, held together by arrogance and low-grade adhesives. True fashion is a legacy. It is a promise kept between the maker and the wearer. A promise that Lana Luxe has broken. Sienna's face turned a ghostly shade of white. She looked at Julian, who was frozen in the front row. Turn it off, she hissed, but the technicians were staring at their monitors in shock. The screen changed again. This time, it displayed a countdown with a single sentence. Asterisk, the shadow is no longer in the dark. The revelation begins in 3, 2, 1. Asterisk, the doors at the back of the ballroom swung open, and the spotlight, acting as if it had a mind of its own, swung away from Sienna and toward the entrance. Every head in the room turned as a figure stepped into the light. The ballroom held its collective breath as Eleanor Vance walked down the center aisle. She was no longer the backwards mother-in-law they had mocked. She was draped in a floor-length gown of midnight blue silk so exquisite it seemed to swallow the light. On her hands were the signature black lace gloves, and pinned to her shoulder was the silver obsidian brooch that had appeared in the Velvet Shadow profile picture for the last 5 years. Sienna's microphone clattered to the floor, the feedback screeching through the speakers. You, she gasped, her voice cracking. No. That's impossible. You're nobody. Eleanor stopped at the edge of the stage, looking up at Sienna with a calm that was more terrifying than rage. Julian stepped forward, his face a mask of horror and confusion. Mom? What is this? What have you done? I didn't do this, Julian, Eleanor said, her voice carrying effortlessly through the silent hall. Sienna did this when she chose greed over craft. You did this when you chose to let her treat your own mother like a servant, because you thought I was a social liability. The CEO of Global Vanguard stood up from the front row, his eyes fixed on Eleanor. Madam Shadow, he said with a respectful nod. We had no idea it was you. The report you sent this morning. Is it final? Eleanor turned to him, her expression ironclad. The report is final. Lana Luxe is not a luxury brand. It is a marketing illusion. I would not advise an investment in a house that doesn't know how to sow its own soul. Sienna lunged toward Eleanor, her face contorted. You old hag. You ruined me. I'll sue you for everything you have. With what money, Sienna? Eleanor asked softly. The house you live in? The one you tried to kick me out of? My late husband put that in my name alone. The company accounts? Those are tied to the Global Vanguard deal that just vanished. Eleanor reached into her clutch and pulled out a black lace veil, slowly draping it over her head. The transformation was complete. She wasn't just Eleanor Vance anymore. She was the judge, jury, and executioner of the fashion world. You told me the city was too fast for me, Julian. But it seems you were both too slow to see who was really running the race. A week later, the Vance mansion was silent, the air heavy with the scent of packed cardboard boxes. Sienna sat on the floor of the empty foyer, surrounded by trash bags filled with her now worthless future core samples. The brand was dead. Every retailer had canceled their contracts, and the Lana Lux sign had been torn down from the flagship store. Julian stood by the window, staring out at the driveway. He had spent the last few days pleading with his mother's lawyers, only to be met with a stack of documents proving that Eleanor had been the silent financier of his father's entire estate. Every penny he thought was his had actually been a gift from the woman he called backwards. "She's here," Julian whispered. A sleek black car pulled into the driveway. Eleanor stepped out, looking radiant in a simple cream-colored linen suit. She wasn't wearing the veil or the lace gloves today. She didn't need the shadow to command the room. She walked into the house, her heels clicking rhythmically on the marble. "The movers will be here at noon to take what's left," Eleanor said, her voice calm and businesslike. "I've sold the house to a heritage foundation. It will become a school for traditional textile arts." Sienna looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "You destroyed everything we worked for. Are you happy now?" "I didn't destroy your work, Sienna. I simply turned on the lights so everyone could see it wasn't there," Eleanor replied. She turned to Julian. "I've set up a small monthly allowance for you, Julian. It's enough for a modest apartment and basic needs, provided you find a real job. It's more than you gave me when you tried to send me to that cottage." Julian looked at the floor, unable to meet her gaze. "Mum, I didn't know." "That was your choice," she said firmly. Eleanor walked to the front door, but paused to look back one last time. "Fashion changes every season, but character is the garment you wear for life. I suggest you both start sewing a new one. This one is beyond repair." As she drove away, Eleanor pulled out her phone. Her latest post on the Velvet Shadow didn't feature a luxury gown or a scathing critique. It was a photo of her mother's old, wooden sewing machine sitting in her new sunlit studio. The caption read, "Back to the craft. Back to the soul. The shadow is finally home." Within seconds, the likes began to climb into the millions.